Welcome to Books and Things. And this week we've got a local author, and his name is Steve Liskow, and he's a mystery writer. And I just read his book. It's called The Whammer Jammers, and it's about roller derby and roller skaters that participate in roller derbies. I thought roller derbies had gone out in the 50s, and you never hear about them. But he tells me that there's a lot of teams all over the place, which I think is very interesting. Anyway, I want to introduce you to Steve Liskow. Thanks for being on here, Steve.
Thanks for having me,
And
Tom.
we'll find out what makes your books tick.
Well,
Yeah, you write all mysteries. Mm-hmm. And why did you start writing mysteries?
well, I think there are a number of things. My mother read all of the classics, Agatha Christie, Ellery Queen, Rex Stout, Dorothy Sayers, and so they were always around, and they read a lot of things. But then when I was about 10, the Hardy Boys showed up on the Mickey Mouse Club, so I started reading all of those, and I started trying to write one. And my first mystery chapter was one wide ruled sheet of notebook paper, and all of the chapters ended the way I knew they were supposed to. Somebody got hit over the head, or the car went over the cliff. But I was probably 10 or 11 then.
Wow.
My mother had worked as a secretary, and so she typed these up, and all of a sudden I saw my words in type, and I don't think after that there was any going back.
Yeah.
And I've tried writing other things. I tried writing more literary for a while, but then I just said, no, I like crime because everything has to make sense, and it's usually about people. And I can do plots, but I'm much more interested in the people.
Yeah.
I like to write about somebody who wants something so badly they make a bad choice.
Yeah.
And there you go.
And you have the policeman in here, and now I forgot his name.
Trash Hendricks.
Trash. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
Tracy Hendricks. He's called Trash, and his partner is Jimmy Burns, so the other cops call them Trash and
Trash
Burn.
and Burns. And that was it's fascinating, and I liked him. I hated to see the book end because I knew he'd be disappearing.
He shows up actually. Trash and Burn are minor characters in some of the Zach Barnes things, and I'm trying to come up with another one about them because other people have said, "Hey, I really like them."
Yeah.
So
Yeah, because he's interesting, and Byrne is interesting. They make a good pair. You did a good job with them.
thank you. They were fun to write.
Now you've got a couple of other books here.
Yeah, I have a total of 9. That was the first book that I self-published. Well, why don't I start with it? This is the book that actually got me back into writing. I had written some books in the 70s. They didn't sell. I think part of it was because they were really horrible. Always a
That'll do
bad
it.
thing.
Yeah.
And the other was I had no idea how to write a query letter or a synopsis, so I went away for years. And then in 2000, my wife and I went back to Michigan for my high school reunion. I hadn't been in Michigan in over 30 years, but we went to my high school. I think it's the year 2000, so what the heck.
Yeah.
And I went to an enormous high school. I only knew probably 10% of my graduating class of 700. But at that reunion, I met a woman who it turned out was now a session keyboard player in Detroit, and her boyfriend or escort at that reunion was Bob Seger's former drummer. And they got up and actually performed, and that gave me an idea for a mystery that started with a high school reunion and went into something else. Well, the reunion eventually got dropped, but I tried writing the book. After a 20-year layoff, I kind of relearned how to write by writing this really horrible draft and then getting feedback and more drafts. And I started reading books on plot and going to workshops. And finally, this book I thought was ready. And the editors and agents disagreed. It went through over 100 rejections under about 4 or 5 different titles. I don't even want to guess how many times it changed, but I published some other books and I kept going back to this one, and finally about 2 years ago I said, I think this one is ready. I've got to do this one myself. Yeah. And then I emailed Susie Woodman, the classmate, because we'd been connecting. She'd been talking about equipment that she used and what's the dynamic like being the girl in a essentially male profession as a session musician, and the character dynamic. So I got a lot of that, and then I said to her, you know, I would really like to get a rock musician to blurb this. And she said, Dick Wagner, who wrote most of the songs for Alice Cooper, is a friend of mine. If you drop my name, maybe he'll do it.
Yeah.
And Wagner did. He was very nice. Wow. I sent him the manuscript, and about 2 months later he came back with something, and he said, if you want to tweak this a little, go ahead. I'm going out on tour again. So I did a little bit, but he was really generous. He was a Facebook friend of mine. He mentioned the book at one point. He passed away about a year ago. He had serious health issues. He'd had a heart bypass. There were other problems. But he was really generous to me, and I'm happy with this book. It is a rock and roll cold case. It was very loosely inspired by the Bobby Fuller case. And it just won honorable mention in the Writer's Digest Self-Published Novel Awards last fall.
Very good.
Yeah, and the judge of this book was the one who told me about the Seamus Award for self-published books. I knew there was a Seamus Award. I didn't know they had one for self-published books, but he said, enter it. This book was not eligible. So I sent another private eye book, which was this one. Which is The Kids Are All Right, which is my Hartford-based private eye.
Oh, okay.
I have 4 in this series. This is the first in the other series. I've got a second one out, but I like the local series because nobody else is using Connecticut, and because it's easy to do the research.
Yeah.
It's not like having to go to Saigon or something.
Yeah.
You can just get in the car, or maybe you know somebody.
There's a guy in Southline writing about the Lyme area. He's got a New York cop, and he writes about murders.
I should know who that is. What's his name? I'll bet I know him, and I can't think of it right now. It's not Jim Ben.
Ray Jansen. Ray Jansen.
No, I don't know Ray. Jim Ben lives along Route 9. I think he's around Old Saybrook.
Yeah,
And he's
this
got the
guy's in
World War
Southline.
II ones.
He's got three or four books out, and I've only read one of them. It was about this New York cop that retired, and New York detective, and lived in Southline.
Okay.
And he describes the area, which basically I know the area, so, and he gets involved in a murder mystery and blah blah blah. It's a good book.
Yeah.
And
It's people tell me they enjoy it when I throw in a local landmark and I know where that is.
Yeah.
It brings them into the story more, and it's kind of fun.
Yeah, it gives you an idea. I've read a book from, God, I can't remember who it was now, but he was up in the Litchfield area, and 20 minutes later he was in Stonington. I went,
How did you do that?
what, you got a jet?
Yeah.
He's coming down 95, boom, he got off. No, you didn't.
How did you get on 95 from Litchfield?
Yeah.
Oh, we used the secret passage.
Yeah, underground.
Yep.
But I thought that was fascinating because, again, knowing the area,
Yeah.
you missed it.
Well, I keep telling myself if I mention enough really good restaurants, maybe somebody will give me a free meal. Hasn't
go.
happened yet,
Yeah.
but I keep trying.
That's like the movie Mystic Pizza.
Right.
And they leave Stonington Village, and in 2 seconds they're driving into Noank, but it's supposed to be around the corner. Well, and you go, I know that place. It does take a little longer. But you know,
Very
it's-
good gas mileage.
Yeah, but it's hard to when you're writing to get everything in there, and you can't allow the 35 minutes or whatever it is it's going to take you to get in there.
Yeah, well, I think it was Elmore Leonard who said, always leave out the stuff people will skip. I almost never talk about how we get from there to there. I just say, later on he pulled into such and such.
Yeah,
And
yeah, no reason to let them know how he got there. unless
once
it's-
in a
that's
great
something
while,
else.
I'll do it if it's going to be important later for some reason, like it's hard to get to the place or there's a bridge that's going to wash out or something like that. But most of the time, we just get there.
Yeah,
It's like jump cuts in film.
yeah, exactly. Now, let me ask, how are these available,
Well,
or where?
they're all on Amazon. They're in a lot of local libraries. They're all available as e-books. When Borders was around, Sorry, Borders carried my stuff.
Yeah.
Barnes and Noble will order it. If somebody goes in and says, "Will you order this book?"
Yeah.
They will, but they don't carry them because I'm self-published, and they still get a little bit twitchy
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, but you're right. Borders I used to have my books in Borders, and matter of fact, I'd bring them over and they'd buy them. Mm-hmm. There was no consignment or
Yeah.
anything. That was really nice.
Yeah, Borders was very local writer friendly.
Yes, yeah, they were. And I did one of my first book signings I did with them, and it was tremendous.
I had the same experience. They were wonderful. They bent over backwards for me.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, promoted it and everything.
Yeah. But then I went to another Borders up in Middletown, I think it was. It was like, it's a chair over there, do what you want to do. And we sat there and went, oh man, this was not a good time.
Yeah, well, we've all had those.
Yeah.
The thing that really gives you the humility is you're thinking, I've written this book. I'm a great author. Then you show up and two people show up and one of them's hoping you're a poet and the other one hopes you do memoirs and neither of them is going to buy the book anyway. And it's like, oh, I drove an hour for this, didn't I?
Yeah.
It's an hour home.
I did a seminar, a little book signing. I thought it was going to be a book signing. And basically it was talking about the history of my second book. When I got through, I sold 0 books, and the lady paid me half of what I was supposed to get.
My favorite bad story was about 2 years ago. I'm with Sisters in Crime,
Yeah.
who sets up a lot of panels. The panels are generally paid if they're in the library and you can sell your books, and they get a good turnout. Did one a couple of years ago. Horrible night, pouring rain, about a 2-hour drive up to Massachusetts. It was in a bookstore instead of a library. The bookstores don't pay. 2 people showed up, one of whom was my daughter, who was taking pictures for the website. So we had the other person sit, and my daughter took a picture behind her. Then they changed coats, and she took another picture. And then one of them used one of the other panelists' coat, and I think we got pictures of her wearing 3 or 4 coats, so it looked like we had other people. But didn't sell a book, drove, it was 4 hours each way, pouring rain. And we were all just kind of, well, this was
you gotta
education.
wonder, what am I doing?
I
I did one up in someplace around Middletown area, Hartford or something. It was for a convalescent home, and they were going to pay me X number of dollars. And I said, all right, then I will go because it'll be worth it. And I figured maybe sell a couple of books. I was up there for about half, 3/4 of an hour talking. Found out that I was only supposed to talk for 30 minutes. And then I asked if anybody had any questions. It was in a convalescent home. They went, we couldn't hear you. So I went down for my money, and they said, we're going to mail it to you. Like 2 weeks later, I got paid.
Yeah, the check didn't bounce.
No,
Okay.
check was good. But you have a lot of fun doing our books.
I do. And I enjoy doing the appearances. I do some writing workshops because I was an English teacher for years, and this kind of satisfies the teaching, Jones.
Oh,
'cause
yeah.
I love teaching.
Yeah.
It was great. And
So you retired?
yeah, I started writing again when I retired because I used to do a lot of theater. The week after I retired, the theater group that I did a lot of work with lost its performance space. And I'd been thinking about writing anyway, and now all of a sudden I had a lot of free time, so I said, well, looks like this. It was about 3 years before that theater group was up and running again.
So you've had quite a rounded past.
Yeah, I've been busy enough, so I almost stayed out of trouble.
Yeah. You acted, produced, directed, and
I designed sound for a lot of shows. I designed lights a couple of times. I'm not good at it. I can keep you out of shadow, but that's about it. I did publicity. I sold encyclopedias one summer. I was a machine operator 2 or 3 summers. I loved doing machine operating after working hard at college for a while. I mean, it was just, gave your brain time to kind of recycle.
yeah.
Trying to think what else I've done. Well, I still read to the blind Friday mornings
Oh, that's
on
nice.
Connecticut Radio Information System, which is a lot of fun. You meet some very interesting people there. For years, my engineer was blind, as a matter of fact. He passed away a couple of years ago, but it was amazing. We had to have either a clicker or some kind of noisemaker in the studio so that he knew when to switch to the other guy who was reading. Switch mics, because he couldn't see.
Wow. Just now that you mentioned Chris, the Lions are very strong with Chris.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, most of the money they get
Yeah, they
is
do.
from the state.
The
from
Lions are
Connecticut.
great supporters for them.
Oh yeah, because the state cut their money out, and they appreciate anybody who goes up and reads, because you do news items, you do sale items,
Yeah.
and at least I did many years ago. I rode up in Norwich, and you tell what's going on, and the people appreciate that.
Oh, yeah. We constantly get letters from people saying, this was great, I really appreciate what you do, I feel like I'm keeping up with the world, it's not
Yeah.
just passing.
And to give another plug, it's free. That's the nice part.
Oh, yeah.
If
Yeah, and-
you're blind, you write to them, they send you a radio receiver, and you can listen all day long.
Some of those people who are doing most of the work are just incredible. I don't know how they get it all done, because
Yeah.
they're doing so many different things at the same time. And they're really great people, and they're patient, and they help you, and they've got all sorts of ideas. Yeah, I've been doing it for about 10 years, and
No
I
kidding.
love it.
Good.
Yeah.
Congratulations. I like to hear that. That's nice. Now, do you have another book going?
Well, oh Lord, won't you steal me a Mercedes
I love
Benz?
the cover.
So does my cover designer. This is a sequel to Blood on the Tracks. This just came out 2 or 3 months ago.
Okay.
And I had a lot of fun with it. It's one of the very few books that when I wrote it, I actually knew where it was going. A lot of mine changed somewhere along the way. I do an outline, but that goes out the window. But this one, about probably 90% of it is what I had in mind.
Yeah.
And the whole idea is a car thief steals a car, it's a Mercedes, and when he takes it to the chalk shop, they find a dead guy in the trunk.
Oh.
And he didn't kill him, but now he realizes, there's a problem here.
Yeah.
And originally I was going to call the book Hot Rod Lincoln, because the car thief has his nickname because he steals high-end cars.
Yeah.
And then I realized as I was writing, Hot Rod Lincoln is a minor character, so it's kind of misleading.
Yeah.
And I started going through other titles, mostly song titles, because most of my things are song titles. And I thought of Spring Little Cobra, that didn't work.
Yeah.
I thought of Little GTO, that
Yeah.
was even dumber. Thought of Little Deuce Coupe, and at that point I knew I was really scraping. And my cover designer came up with one, and we knew it wasn't going to work, but we really, really liked it. We thought it was a lot of fun. So for about 4 weeks while I was writing this, the name of this book was Hyundai Bloody Hyundai.
That's not a bad title.
Yeah, except we didn't have a Hyundai either. And then finally my wife said, why don't you call it, Oh Lord, won't you steal me a Mercedes Benz? And my cover designer and I looked at each other and went,
Yes! It is.
there it is!
Well,
So,
the thing is, you look at that and you want to sing.
yeah.
I do anyway.
Well, almost all of my books are song titles because the character who's a detective here runs into an ex-keyboard player in the course of the mystery who is based on Susie Woodman, my old classmate. That's where I
Okay.
got the idea. And he's a wannabe guitar player. He's not very good, but he wanted to be a rock and roll hero. So I started listing all of the song titles I could think of that might work as mysteries. Blood on the Tracks is a Bob Dylan album. The Whammer Jammers is a Jay Giles Band song.
That's right. Yeah.
The Kids Are All Right is one of the first songs by The Who that
Yeah.
was released in this country. So that seems to be where I go. Most of my books and a lot of my short stories are also song titles. Just because I find if the song title goes somewhere, it gives me a rough idea for the plot right there.
Yeah. Well, plus the fact that anybody looks at that one, they know where the song came from.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
it's neat. But it's a great cover. And now you were pointing out that little in the bottom there.
The Mercedes-Benz has a license plate. You can't see it unless you look really closely. The license plate is, how did he put it? It's J Girl, G-U-R-L, because the stripper in the book, her nickname is Jersey Girl, because during her act she wears various sports jerseys, the Detroit Tigers, the Red Wings, the Lions, or whatever, and then she ends up wearing a lot less. But
Yeah, I wonder why.
for a long time, my detective is looking for a stripper called Jersey Girl, and he thinks it's because she's from New Jersey.
Ah.
And nobody
Yeah.
gets that until about 3/4 of the way through the book. Is like, oh, that's her. I keep trying to throw jokes in. My stuff is fairly dark. There's a certain amount of violence, but I try to throw in the humor.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it, all of the great literature has humor. My favorite Shakespeare play is King Lear, which is really, really dark, but it has some awfully funny lines in it.
Yeah. Wham and Jam had a lot of funny lines.
I had fun with that.
And a lot of twists at the end. That was very interesting.
A lot of people said they loved the ending because some people got hurt badly, but some people actually get off pretty easily. I mean, there are a couple of people who could have come to very bad ends who, no pun intended, dodge a bullet.
Yeah, exactly. But it was a good book. I enjoyed it.
I really want to do
appreciate it.
more with those people. I want to come back to roller derby again. I keep trying, and I haven't found a way in yet. Because I'm afraid that if I do another, the roller derby would just be a gimmick. For that, it was the world of the book, and it made a difference.
Did you say we had roller derby down here in Groton?
There are 4 women's teams in Groton.
Wow. I never heard of that.
I can't think of their names now, but I went to a couple of their matches. I did a book signing down here a while. They're good.
Yeah.
There are a couple of women's teams in Hartford. There are a couple in New Haven. There's at least one men's team out of Waterbury that skates New Haven. There may be another by now. And this was 4 or 5 years ago.
I wonder why there's no publicity or anything.
I have no idea. Because
Nothing.
once in a great while, you see something in the paper. It's this little weird feature thing, but I think a lot of it is because most of them are volunteer and they don't have time to do it full time. There are websites. There are Facebook pages. There's a Facebook page for, I think it's Shoreline Roller Derby, which is the Groton one. And it's a decent site, but again, there are people who work full time and they're finding time to practice, so occasionally they'll post an event or something. But the women are very bright. A lot of them are college educated. They're white collar. They were a lot of fun to interview because they're so funny.
Well, I think when you're in that position, you have to have a good income, because what you're doing out there, you're not getting paid a lot.
You're not, and you're paying your own health insurance.
Yeah.
And because it is considered a fairly risky undertaking, you're paying. It's a lot safer than it used to be, because now they have a flat track. It's no longer the banked track.
You get dumped off the railing.
You have to wear elbow pads, knee pads, and a helmet.
Okay.
That's absolutely mandatory. And you have to have a certain amount of time practicing. You have to learn certain safety things, like how to do what they call fall small, so that if you fall, you roll into a ball so nobody rolls over your hands or anything, because that would really mess up your piano playing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But there was a problem back in the day where people get knocked in and over the wall and.
Well, the sport almost died out because in the late 70s and early 80s, the TV people wanted them doing a lot of bouts back to back, and they were building and taking down the track too. So fatigue was becoming a real issue, and they were getting hurt.
Yeah.
And finally, somebody said, we have to change this. And that's when they came up with the idea of a flat track. There are bank tracks in a few places in the Southwest. I think West Texas still has a few. But a lot of them, they came up with a standard dimension. You can use a high school gym now and just tape it out on the floor, and then when it's over, just pull up the tape and it's gone again. It takes about an hour because they have standard dimensions now. They know it's okay, it's this wide here, this corner has this angle, so they can do it, and it's a lot safer.
I think that's wild. We got about 5 minutes left if we missed anything that you'd like to talk about.
Well, I'm enjoyed being here. I love the writing. I do workshops, and I'm gearing up. I'm doing several of those in the area now. I do them, actually a couple of libraries have me doing one for National Novel Writing Month. I have a 2-part thing, people who've never written a novel before and think they want to do that, so I do those. I have one on characters. I have one on dialogue. That one, because I used to do a lot of theater. I just really enjoy the fact that every writer I've met has been a delightful person. I mean, like you.
Oh, thank you.
Some of them aren't as good looking, but they're really delightful. And it's just great because it also gives me a way to go out and talk to people about weird stuff. Like, I met a lot of delightful young women, actually some of them not so young. The oldest skater when I was doing that was 54.
Wow.
She was out of, I think, Tacoma. Her rink name was the Hot Flash.
She's got to be good.
And tough.
Yeah, like that's it's a tough game. I don't care how they clean it
Well,
up.
my daughter is getting back into it. She was away from it for a while. She started gaining weight again, and she said the nice thing about it is a really tough 2.5 hour practice. You burn 3,000 calories because you're on wheels just
Yeah,
constantly.
just constantly going. Kappa also has a couple of book signings coming up. One's in Basra and at the Basra Farm Market, and the other one is
The one that's not in Basra, yeah.
it's not in Basra.
Right.
And we also have one coming up in Colchester, and so I mentioned that because they're going to be in August, and we're always looking for authors to sign up with.
Sure.
I'll send you the information.
Okay, great. I'd love to see it.
And let's see what we can do. But book signings are great. You meet so many great people.
That's the thing about it. You're not stuck just at the computer.
No.
I mean, I like people. I'm sort of shy, but I love meeting people, especially because they all have a story to tell.
Yeah.
And that's it.
I used to go out there, and I'd go home. My girlfriend would say, "Did you sell any books?" "Yeah, I wanted to." "Why do you go?" "Because I love talking to people."
And sometimes they feed me.
Yeah. It was fun. We'll get some food too.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just go because you'll enjoy it.
Absolutely. It's great.
And I tell people, I say, if you're going to get into book writing to make $1 million,
Forget it.
go rob a bank because this is not
Maybe.
going to happen. But you make a few bucks, and if you're lucky, you pay back the cost. But you'll never get your labor paid because
Never.
it takes too long. But it's the satisfaction of knowing that
It
you did
is.
it.
And you get it out there and you can say, I did that.
Yes.
And somebody else looks at you, they really think writing a book is a great thing just because they haven't done it.
Yeah. And it's fun. It's
It
an
is.
accomplishment.
It's really satisfying. You get to a certain point and you say, now I know where this is going. And then it just,
I am a published author.
yeah.
It's not going to get me anything, but I want to thank everybody for watching and your emails, because that's what we strive is to get everybody happy. We got a great lineup coming up for the rest of the month. Tish Rabe, who writes the Cat in the Hat book, and will be here. Doug Seaver, another local author. Dr. Dave and Mary DeSano from Rhode Island, and they're spiritual healers. And this is a show that you really got to watch. And if you can't watch it, set your DVR, because it's going to be very, very interesting. We also got Kevin and Melissa Brault from Mystic, who just opened up a store called Mystic Organics. And you're going to learn about inhaling oxygen. They got 3 or 4 different kinds of oxygen you can inhale, maybe for a whole hangover or whatever. Our next CCAPA meeting will be July 20th. You can contact me for more information. And special thank you to SEC TV for hosting our show. And tonight the VFW is once again serving their chowder and clam fritters for free if you buy a beverage. Friday and Sunday they have a luncheon. And tomorrow night they're going to have their famous fish and chips night. And they do that once a month on the second Friday of the month. First Friday of the month. And they're also, on July 25th, they're going to have a lobster bash.
Ooh.
And it's going to be double lobster and chowder. And
That sounds like a shell of a good time.
it's going to be. Anyway, thank you for watching. Email me at santostom@comcast.net. You should be reading. Cuddle up with a good book. And I'll see you next week. And thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
It's a great time.